afternoon, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I'm hoping that you're enjoying life. I'm hoping that you're enjoying this meeting. But it's time to do some work now. Please take a paper and pen and write your name on it. All done?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now invert that piece of paper and take the same pen, close your eyes and start stabbing at the paper randomly. Yeah, close your eyes, I'm looking. Looking nice doing that. Okay, stop. Stop. Please don't enjoy that so much. Okay, now look. What you've just created is a random pattern of dots. Is that not?
Yes.
Now flip the paper. And you see your name on it.
Yes.
Is there any link between the two?
No.
Thank you. There's a theory that if you keep stabbing the paper with the nib of the pen for 1,000,000 years, someday you will form a pattern that will resemble your name.
Oh.
And maybe you will. But will that be your name? No, you wouldn't have willingly created it. And that, my friends, is the major distinguishing factor behind creation. Creation does not rely on laws of physics. Creation relies on a will to create. Take life on earth. We are all aware that what does it take to bring life into being? First of all, water. We are all aware of the water cycle. We've been studying it since school days. We consume water, it goes somewhere, and then we consume water again, it comes from somewhere. It's all linked. Just a second. I'm just trying to get this. Trust me, I haven't forgotten my speech. I'm just trying to get this to display correctly. Okay, yeah. And as usual, as is very usual, it lands on precisely the wrong slide. But we have a way to make it right. Never mind. Okay, so this is the water cycle. Did you notice that nowhere does it say anything about the creation of water? Wonder why that is? Because there's absolutely no natural process on this planet that results in combination of hydrogen and oxygen and forming of water. So where did all this water come from? The answer literally is out of this world. There are asteroids and comets that have billions of tons of ice. And they have been bombarding the Earth for billions of years, and they have been depositing steady amounts of water over those billions of years. At first, Earth was very hot, so everything was superheated steam, and then it cooled down. Then we went through the ice ages, so it cooled down quite a bit, but then it got to a reasonable temperature, and we have mostly water and ice. My question to you is Earth the only planet that has been bombarded by asteroids and comets? No way. That is true for every heavenly body. Then why is that no other planet contains even trace quantities of water? According to NASA itself, they have identified 1,235 possible planets that could harbor life. And based on that, they have found that out of those, 54 could contain water. Could, not confirmed. And what are these 1, 2, 3, 5 planets? They are the planets that roughly are the size of Earth and roughly at the same distance from the Sun that the Earth is from its star. So we are literally talking about billions of planets here, out of which 54 may contain water. What are the odds though? Let me tell you. Just look at our solar system. These are the 8 planets. Sorry, Pluto fans. Pluto is no longer a planet. You can see Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. If you have a globe of, let's say, Mercury, and you spin it around, will the picture change? Hardly. If you have a globe of Jupiter, which you can because Jupiter is a gas giant, but nevertheless, humor me for a second, and you spin it around, you'll just see minor differences in the patterns of gases that is forming. And same goes for every other planet, in fact, except one, and that is our own planet. You spin it around, and at every single degree of rotation, you will see a different picture. Why? Because Earth seems to be the only planet with distinct surfaces, land and sea and ice, out of the entire solar system. Now it seems to me that out of all the planets in the solar system, Earth seems uniquely qualified to provide livelihood and life. Hold that thought, and in fact, note it down if you want. Next ingredient of life that we have is oxygen. We all know that we need oxygen to breathe. But what's the percentage of oxygen in Earth's atmosphere? Anybody? 21%. Is too much oxygen a good thing? No, because it's flammable. So that means that with a few percentage points of variation of oxygen, you would not have life as we know it on this planet. Perhaps it would have been a different life form. Now let's see the composition, and there is something very striking about it. Why? Because if you see Earth and Mercury, they have very similar levels of oxygen. In fact, Mercury is 42% oxygen, whereas Earth is 21% oxygen. But the problem with this is that Mercury is a ball of fire. Firstly, because it's too close to the sun, and secondly, because it has 42% oxygen. It doesn't have an atmosphere to speak of. See the rest of the planets, and you see the stunning resemblance between Venus and Mars. They both have exact same percentage of carbon dioxide in their atmosphere, and then there are some other gases, but mostly they are carbon dioxide and nitrogen, and they broadly have the exact same percentage. Remember, Venus is before us and Mars is after us. And then you see the gas giants, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and you see that most of them are hydrogen. And then there are some other variations in their atmospheres. So virtually every planet in the solar system has a twin, or a triplet, or a quadruplet in terms of its atmospheric composition. But not us. Earth is an anomaly because we have 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen. We don't need to even go beyond the solar system. Why sift through galaxies and superclusters of galaxies when we have this data right in our solar system? And that is that Earth is the only planet that has the right amount of oxygen for life. Hold that thought. In fact, write it down. Next, we have gravity. Now you would ask, what does gravity have to do with anything? Because humans have gone to space, they float around and they don't die. Yes, true. But gravity is needed for walking, for traveling. Gravity is needed for holding the atmosphere, holding the oxygen that we cherish so much to our planet, holding the water that we cherish so much to our planet, and also enabling plant growth, also retaining soil, also causing the waves in oceans and rivers. Without gravity, we won't have life as we know it. Where does our gravity come from though? The first is the unique size and shape of Earth, which is not exactly unique. Many other planets share this attribute. But Earth has one thing that we haven't been able to detect on any other planet so far, and that is our moon. But you would say, yeah, so many planets have satellites. What's so unique about our moon? Let me tell you what's so unique about our moon. The moon is 1/4 the size of Earth. It is the largest satellite compared to its mother planet that we know of. Look at all the other planets. Jupiter, 42 moons. Saturn, 79 moons, and they're tiny. They're too tiny to have any meaningful effect on their mother planet in terms of gravity or in terms of any other phenomenon. But not our moon. The moon is 1/4 the size of the Earth. It exerts strong gravity. It stabilizes our orbit so that we have consistent seasons. And the behavior of our seasons is predictable, and also the moon causes high tides and low tides, and that plays a vital role in ecology of the Earth. So just to recap, the moon makes one round around the Earth in around 30 days, and the moon and the Earth makes one spin around the sun in 365 days. But the sun is also spinning around the center of the galaxy, which is a supermassive black hole, and with it the entire solar system. We are on the outer arm of the galaxy, and it takes us 230 million years to complete one revolution. But that's not where the story ends. Our galaxy is part of a supercluster called the local group. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's an unimaginative name, but that's how scientists are. So these are the various galaxies that are in our local group, and the local group itself is part of the Laniakea supercluster, which is a cluster of galaxies. So it contains literally millions of galaxies such as ours. And that's where we have been able to observe the universe so far. And each and every one of these galaxies is exerting gravity on our galaxy and on our planet, because remember, gravity is the faintest force of nature, but it's also the only force that can act on an infinite amount of distance. So all these galaxies, our sun, our moon, combine to form the gravity that we have on Earth, and that seems to be one of the only viable configurations of galaxy that can support life. Hold that thought, in fact. Write it down. Next we have temperature. The Earth was formed 4 to 5 billion years ago. It was superheated at first, more than 800 degrees, then it cooled down, and finally it cooled down enough to nurture life. No surprises there, because that's the story of every heavenly body. When it's born, it's super hot, it has loads of energy, and when it has hurtled through space a bit or burned its energy out, then it cools down. And that's the fate of everything in the universe ultimately. But if you look at the temperatures of the planets, and this is by the way in Fahrenheit, Venus 870 degrees, Mercury 800 degrees, Mars minus 20 degrees, Jupiter minus 160 degrees, Saturn 220 degrees, Uranus 320 degrees in the negative, and Neptune minus 330 degrees. These temperatures have very little correlation with their distance to the sun. These temperatures are also a function of the individual composition and atmospheres of these planets. How do I know that? Because Mercury is less hot than Venus. And Venus is the hottest planet in the solar system, but it's second in terms of distance from the sun. But Earth has 60 degrees, and guess what? This temperature is perfect to support life. In fact, we are going to experience an eclipse tomorrow. And what happens in an eclipse? The shadow of the moon obscures the sun. Have you ever wondered why does the moon's shadow fit so neatly over that of the sun? Because, and it's nothing less than a miracle, the sun is 400 times larger than the moon. But the sun is also 400 times farther than the moon. So when we look at the shadow of the moon, it fits neatly over the sun. And that's how we have the ring of fire that we are going to have tomorrow.
What time?
7:38 till 8:40
8
something.
PM.
What does eclipse have to do with life on Earth? Nothing in particular, but it does indicate that the moon is at a distance to Earth that is perfectly conducive to life. Finally, we have the history of life on Earth, and we have it spanning over millions of years, 4 billion years in fact. The first organisms arose, and then we have various eras, and then famously we had dinosaurs, and only since the last 200,000 we have humans. My purpose today is not to challenge the theory of evolution, because by still being a theory, it has inherent challenge to itself. My question though is that why does the scientific method so blind to the possibility of existence of anything other than evolution that can explain our presence? Dinosaurs went extinct, but do we know that some species survive today? They are birds. They are direct descendants of dinosaurs. We have various insects that have been like that for millions of years. That brings me to my favorite animal of all time, the cockroach. These are the various major species of cockroach that we can find on Earth. And these are the various major species of apes that we find on Earth. Take a look around this hall. How much variation do you observe in terms of size, shape, or any other attribute? The humans all practically look alike. The cosmetic differences that we see in terms of facial of gender, these are not even 0.0001% of this variation that we see in other species. For example, we don't see 8 feet tall humans. We don't see 3 feet tall humans as a mainstream phenomenon. Unfortunately, when we see these phenomena, we classify them as freaks. And that's the very evidence that most of the humans, a whopping 99.9% of humans, have very similar attributes. If humans had evolved naturally, why don't we have various species of humans? If we are working on computers today, if we are working on cell phones today, why isn't there a species that is not human but has invented the wheel? Or perhaps learned to use fire? Can anyone explain that huge gap between us? Can anyone explain the evolution of the human mind? If it were just the laws of physics, why is there only one human mind? Why is there no remote correlation between this mind and any other mind? There's a school of thought that says that the formation of the universe and life itself has resulted from something purely random. In other words, there's no supreme being, there's no consciousness, there's no plan. it's just a function of laws of physics. Well, laws of physics result in things like this, or this, or perhaps the planets that populate the rest of our old solar system. They don't explain Earth. Stephen Hawking was one of the most famous proponents of this school of thoughts. Alternately, there's another school of thought that says that the universe as we see it and life and consciousness as we see it could not have resulted from random laws of physics. Instead, they require some conscious being to be present. Call it supreme intelligence, call it the first cause, call it God, Allah, whatever. Einstein was one of the major believers of this school of thought. We know that when things are left to their own devices, they cannot be brought into order. That's one of the laws of thermodynamics. The order inside a system only increases. So when we leave systems to their own devices, we cannot expect them to create something out of nothing. Instead, they just bring more and more disorder within themselves. For example, can I use this? You just wrote your names on that paper. If I take this paper right now and spread it around like Toastmaster Raza Khan does, what will I have to do in order to get it back together? I'll have to collect every piece, and I'll have to add water to it, beat it into a pulp, and then put that pulp through a paper machine in order to bring it to its former shape. Just lying there, do you for a second believe that for 1 billion years it would reassemble itself into that paper? There you have my point. We need to stop worshipping the God of randomness, because that cannot create. Mr. Toastmaster.